We have been told our entire lives that love is a feeling, that it arrives like the weather, unpredictable, uncontrollable, something that either happens to you or doesn't. That the right relationship will feel effortless, that the right person will make everything click, that if you have to work too hard at something, it probably wasn't meant to be in the first place. And I want to gently but directly challenge every single part of that. Not because love isn't beautiful, or because the feeling of it isn't real. It absolutely is. But because treating love purely as a feeling, something to be found, experienced, and either sustained or abandoned based on how it feels at any given moment, is one of the most quietly destructive ideas our culture has ever handed us. And the evidence is everywhere. Divorce rates, situationships that go nowhere for years, people cycling through relationship after relationship, wondering why nothing ever quite works, why the feeling always fades, why they keep ending up in the same place with different people. So here is the reframe I want to offer you today. Love is a skill, not just a feeling. A learnable, developable, genuinely practicable skill, like any other skill worth having. And like every skill worth having, it requires self-knowledge. It requires practice. It requires the humility to acknowledge that you don't already know everything just because you've felt it deeply before. Today we're going to talk about what that actually means. 5 things worth understanding if you want to love better. Chapter 1. Why following your feelings has been failing you. There is a particular belief sitting at the heart of modern dating that almost nobody questions because it sounds so obviously correct. The belief that when it comes to love, you should follow your feelings. That instinct is your most reliable guide. That if something feels right, it probably is. And if it feels wrong, it probably isn't. That the heart knows things the mind can't fully articulate, and the best thing you can do is trust it. And here's the uncomfortable truth about that belief. It sounds beautiful, and it has been genuinely catastrophic for how we navigate relationships. Not because feelings are unimportant, they matter enormously. But because feelings are not the whole picture, and building an entire approach to love on feeling alone is like navigating a city using only your emotions and no map. You might end up somewhere interesting. You're also very likely to get lost, repeatedly, in the same neighborhoods, wondering why you keep ending up there. The problem is that our feelings in relationships are not neutral. They're shaped by our past, our wounds, our earliest experiences of what love looked and felt like. Which means when something feels familiar, we interpret that as feeling right, even when familiar and healthy are 2 completely different things. The person who triggers a particular feeling in you isn't necessarily the person who is good for you. Sometimes they're the person whose dynamic matches something unresolved from your history. Think about how many people you know, maybe yourself included, who keep ending up in relationships with the same kind of person despite genuinely trying not to. Different face, different name, same dynamic, same outcome. That's not bad luck. That's feelings leading the way without enough self-awareness behind them to course correct. Following your feelings in love without understanding where those feelings come from is not romantic. It's just unconscious. And unconscious patterns tend to repeat themselves until something forces them into the light. 2. Your childhood wrote the first draft of how you love. This is the section that tends to make people slightly uncomfortable, and I think that discomfort is worth sitting with rather than skipping past. Because understanding this one thing, really understanding it, changes how you see yourself in relationships more than almost anything else possibly could. Here is what we know with a reasonable degree of certainty. The emotional patterns you carry into your adult relationships were largely formed before you were 10 years old. Not consciously, not deliberately, not through any process you were aware of at the time, but absorbed quietly, the way a child absorbs language, without lessons, without textbooks, simply by existing in an environment long enough for its patterns to become your normal. You learned whether people could be trusted by watching your caregivers. You learned whether expressing your needs was safe or dangerous by how those needs were received in childhood. You learned what love feels like, what conflict sounds like, what closeness does or doesn't involve. All of it downloaded into your emotional operating system before you had any say in the matter. And then you grew up, went out into the world, and started relating to other people using that operating system. Without realizing, that's what you were doing. Here is how this tends to show up in real adult life. A woman grows up with a father who was emotionally present sometimes and completely checked out other times. Warm one week, distant the next. No consistent pattern she could rely on. She reaches adulthood and finds herself consistently drawn to men who run hot and cold. Men whose inconsistency she interprets as depth, whose unavailability she experiences as a challenge worth pursuing. Stable, consistently available men feel somehow boring to her, even though boring is not the right word. What she's actually feeling is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar, when your nervous system was calibrated in childhood to expect inconsistency, can feel almost indistinguishable from unexciting. She's not making a bad choice consciously. She's following a map that was drawn for her a long time ago. Understanding that the map exists is the first step toward drawing a better one. 3. The attachment patterns nobody warned you about. If there is one framework that explains more about why relationships go wrong than almost any other, it is attachment theory. And I want to talk about it here, not in the clinical, textbook way that makes people's eyes glaze over, but in the honest, grounded, this is actually your life way that makes it genuinely useful. Here is the core idea. The way you attach to your primary caregiver as a child, whether that felt safe and consistent or unpredictable and unreliable, created a template. A set of deeply ingrained expectations about how relationships work, how available people are, how safe it is to be vulnerable, what happens when you get too close to someone. And that template follows you into every significant relationship you have as an adult, operating mostly beneath the level of conscious awareness. Researchers identified several patterns, but the two most relevant to modern dating are these: anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. And understanding which one you lean toward, or which one your partner leans toward, explains an enormous amount about the dynamics that keep playing out between you. An anxiously attached person needs a lot of reassurance. They read into silences, they overthink delayed responses, they feel the threat of abandonment in situations that a more securely attached person would barely notice. This isn't neediness in the shallow sense that word gets used. It's a nervous system that learned early on that connection was uncertain and developed hypervigilance as a way of protecting itself. An avoidantly attached person does the opposite. When things get emotionally close, something in them pulls back. Not because they don't want love. They do, deeply. But because intimacy at a certain level triggers an alarm that was installed in childhood when closeness felt unsafe or overwhelming. So they create distance. They suddenly need space. They find reasons why this is getting too intense. Now here is what makes this particularly complicated in modern dating. Anxious and avoidant people are magnetically drawn to each other. The anxious person pursues. The avoidant withdraws. The pursuit makes the avoidant feel suffocated. The withdrawal makes the anxious person more desperate. And the cycle feeds itself endlessly, with both people genuinely convinced that the other person is the problem. Neither person is the problem. They are both running attachment patterns that made complete sense in the environments that created them. What's required is not a different partner, but a deeper understanding of the pattern itself. Because a pattern you can see clearly is a pattern you can actually begin to change. Now let's talk about what a relationship actually requires for it to be able to work out. This is where I want to get genuinely practical, because understanding attachment theory and childhood patterns is valuable. But understanding without application is just interesting information that doesn't change anything in your actual life. So let's talk about what a relationship concretely requires to function well, beyond the feeling of being in love with someone. The first thing it requires is the ability to repair, not the absence of conflict. Conflict is inevitable between any two people who are genuinely showing up as themselves in a relationship. What separates relationships that last from ones that don't is almost never the absence of problems. It's the capacity to move through problems and come out the other side with the connection intact. Can you have a genuinely difficult conversation and find your way back to each other afterward? Can you apologize in a way that actually addresses what happened rather than just ending the discomfort of the argument? Can you forgive in a way that is real rather than just a surface-level ceasefire that leaves the underlying issue completely untouched? The second thing it requires is honest communication, and specifically the kind that most people find uncomfortable. Not the easy conversations, not the ones where you're both already agreeing, but the ones where something has been quietly bothering you, and you've been avoiding saying it because you don't want to create tension. Those unspoken things accumulate. They build into a kind of emotional debt that eventually expresses itself in ways that seem disproportionate to whatever triggered them. An argument about something small that is actually about something much larger that has been sitting unaddressed for months. A practical way to think about this: imagine a couple who stopped being physically intimate 6 months ago. On the surface, it looks like a physical issue. But underneath it, if you pull the thread honestly, is a series of small, unresolved tensions that created emotional distance. And emotional distance is simply not a condition under which most people feel genuine desire. The intimacy didn't disappear because the attraction disappeared. It disappeared because the trust eroded quietly over time through things that were never said. What a relationship requires, more than chemistry and more than compatibility, is two people willing to keep showing up for the uncomfortable conversations that keep the connection honest. Lastly, stop looking for the right person and start becoming one. This is the one I want to end on because I think it's the most honest and the most useful thing I can say after everything we've covered today. And it's going to push back against something that the entire dating industry, the apps, the advice columns, the algorithmic matchmaking is built on the assumption of. The assumption that the primary work of finding love is finding the right person. It isn't. The primary work is becoming someone capable of sustaining love once it arrives. Here's what that distinction actually means in practice. Most people enter the dating process as consumers. They're evaluating options, identifying red flags, filtering for compatibility, looking for the person who checks enough boxes that the relationship should theoretically work. And there's nothing wrong with having standards. Standards matter. But the consumer mindset has a blind spot so significant that it undermines the entire search. It keeps the focus entirely outward on what the other person brings, while leaving the much harder inward question almost completely unexamined. That inward question is this: what do I bring? Not in the resume sense, not your achievements or your personality traits or the things you'd list if someone asked you to describe yourself, but in the deeper, more uncomfortable sense. What patterns do I carry into relationships? Where do I shut down when I should open up? Where do I make my partner responsible for feelings that are actually mine to manage? Where am I still operating from a wound I haven't fully looked at? These are not easy questions. They require a level of honest self-examination that is genuinely uncomfortable and that most people find ways to avoid. It's considerably easier to identify what's wrong with the people you've dated than to sit with what you might be contributing to the recurring difficulties. But here's what's on the other side of that discomfort. A version of you that shows up in relationships with enough self-awareness to actually make them work. Not perfectly. Nobody loves perfectly. But consciously. With enough understanding of your own patterns that you can catch them before they do damage. enough humility to hear difficult things without immediately defending yourself, and enough genuine investment in the other person's experience to make the relationship a place where two people actually grow. That is what loving as a skill looks like in practice, and it is available to anyone willing to do the work. What I want you to walk away with today is something simpler than it might sound after everything we've covered. Love is not a treasure you find, it's a capacity you build. And building it requires the same thing that building anything worthwhile requires: honest self-reflection, a willingness to be uncomfortable, and the patience to keep working at something even when it would be easier to walk away and start over with someone new. The feeling of love is real, and it matters. But the feeling alone has never been enough to sustain anything long-term. What sustains it is the work that happens beneath the feeling. The communication, the repair, the self-awareness, the genuine commitment to understanding another person, even when understanding them is difficult and inconvenient. You are not looking for someone perfect. You are looking for someone willing. Willing to do this work alongside you, willing to stay curious about you, willing to keep choosing the relationship even when choosing it asks something real from them. And before you can find that person, you have to become that person first. Drop a comment below and tell me what landed most for you today. A like helps this channel grow, and if you're not subscribed yet, come join us. I'll see you in the next one.